Hello and welcome to a Fireside Chat with Dr. Childress. In today's Fireside Chat, I want to talk about the 12 associated clinical signs. So I'm going to put this into a series of talks. I'm going to start with an introduction here on what the 12 associated clinical signs are, and then I will go through each of the 12 individually in separate little commentaries on each of the 12 associated clinical signs. So, to start with, the 12 associated clinical signs of the pathology in the family courts are listed on page 3 of the Diagnostic Checklist for Pathogenic Parenting. Now, I recommend or I identify 3 primary symptoms that are always present when the pathology is present. And so those are the diagnostic indicators. If those are present, we're looking at the pathology, and that's what the diagnostic indicator is designed to do, is to identify those 3 symptoms. In addition, though, there are symptoms that are often present, associated clinical signs, that can be used to both identify the pathology in like a screening kind of situation, or can offer diagnostic support when the 3 diagnostic indicators are present. And the way I kind of think about this relative to diagnosing the pathology is that we're looking at a particular thing, a pathology. And no matter which way we look at it, we continue to see the same thing. So if I flip it over and look from a personality disorders perspective, I see the narcissistic borderline dark personality. If I shift it around and look at a different perspective, I'll see like family systems, I'll see the cross-generational coalition in triangulation. If I flip it, I'll see the persecutory delusion. And so no matter which way I turn it, I continue to see the pathology. What the associated clinical signs are, so the 3 diagnostic indicators. Number 1 is the factitious attachment pathology, false bonding or a suppression of attachment bonding towards a normal range parent, and that doesn't happen. The attachment system is a goal-corrected motivational system. It's always seeking to maintain or establish an attachment bond to the parent. And so, but here we have a child who's seeking to sever the attachment bond from a normal range parent. And so that's not a normal attachment system. So diagnostic indicator 1 is your factitious attachment pathology being imposed on the child. Diagnostic indicator 2 is the personality disorder pathology. So you flip it, diagnostic 1 indicator, you see false attachment pathology. Flip it, and you'll see the personality disorder pathology. You'll see a child displaying 5 specific narcissistic symptoms. Now, I could have just said the child will display narcissistic personality symptoms, but that's too vague. For diagnosis, we need a really clear criteria. So I identified the 5 specific narcissistic symptoms that we'll see. One of the reasons I chose 5 is because that's the cutoff in the DSM for personality disorder. And children don't have personality disorders. So again, we're looking at a false personality disorder. But where does a child acquire narcissistic personality symptoms? Is it they got a person? No. They are being psychologically controlled and manipulated by a parent who has those personality traits. And in the enmeshment and psychological control, the child is acquiring the same characteristics as the controlling parent has. So it's the parent who has these 5 narcissistic traits that the child is then expressing through the influence of that parent. So now we got the psychological control also documented in diagnostic indicator 2. Then if we flip it again and look at a persecutory delusion, we see a persecutory delusion in the child towards a normal range parent. That never happens. And so that's diagnostic indicator 3. And really, this is just a 1 symptom diagnosis. It's a diagnostic indicator 3, a shared persecutory delusion. And so if you have a persecutory delusion in the child, that's the pathology we're worried about, diagnostic indicator 3. In addition, though, if you flip it a different way, you're going to see personality disorder pathology. If you flip it a different way, you'll see the factitious attachment pathology. If you see all three, you're deadlocked that we have pathogenic parenting by narcissistic borderline dark personality who's creating the persecutory delusion and factitious disorder in the child. So what the diagnostic checklist does is simply document the mental health assessment for these symptoms. And it provides clarity for the court, it provides clarity for the litigants, it provides clarity for the mental health people, for the parents, everybody on what the mental health perspective is on those three symptoms. Factitious disorder, personality pathology, anxiety disorders in there too, the phobia, and the delusion, persecutory delusional thought disorder. In addition, though, on page 3 are the 12 associated clinical signs. And what that is so if we're flipping around the pathology, looking at personality disorder, cross-generational coalition, factitious disorder, as we're seeing the same thing from multiple perspectives. What the 12 associated clinical signs are is it's like looking inside. It's like flipping it and you're looking at and you see these symptom patterns, these symptom features. Well, holy cow, none of the 12 ACS show up in anything else. They are evidence of this pathology. They're produced by this pathology, and there's a reason why each one of them shows up, and that's what I'll be talking about today, is where each one is grounded in the pathology, which is why no matter which way we flip it, we kind of see the same thing. And when we flip it this way, we see because they're part of a symptom pattern. They emerge from the same symptom pattern. And once you recognize the pattern, it's just easy. It just shows up because it shows up everywhere is the pattern. Trauma pathology is pattern. It replicates pattern. And so the 12 associated clinical signs, I think, are pretty fantastic. And they are really good at identifying the pathology, if there's any doubt, or in screenings kinds of things, or all sorts of places. So what are they? The first one is the use of the word forced by anybody. Now that in the data and the research, I'll talk about that in a second. The research indicates from Greenham, Childress, and Dorsey-Pruder's custody resolution method data, found ACS1 in 85% of the families in the family courts. So that's a high prevalence of the use of the word forced. And there's a reason for it, and I'll talk about that in another little segment. The ACS2 is empowering the child to reject the other parent. That's in 100% of families, 46 families in the family courts that we took a look at. It was found in all 46 families. The exclusion demand, excluding the targeted parent from sports activities, graduation ceremonies, milestone events. That was found in 63% of court-involved families. Parental replacement, that's either calling the parent by their first name, so you disown the parent, calling them Bob or Mary instead of mom or dad, or you start calling the step parent, the new step parent of the pathological parent, as mom or dad. So you've replaced the parent, and that's in 54% of the families that are in Dorsey's data pool. Then ACS5 is the unforgivable event. 96% of families, we see this pretty much, that there's some event that occurred that the child says or uses to justify all current and future rejection of the parent is some past event. The use of the word liar or fake relative to the targeted parent. Oh, they're a liar, they're acting so fake. It's found in 87% of families. There are certain identified themes that are offered for the rejection. And one of those themes is 100% of the families showed those types of themes for the rejection. And then ACS 8 is the unwarranted use of the word abuse. Now, all abuse allegations should be fully investigated, but borderline personalities tend to exaggerate. Every inconvenience is abusive. And so it's that inflammatory use of language and inflammatory allegations that's a concern. And that was in 89% of the families, is this inflammatory language. Excessive texting, phone calls, or emails when the child's with the targeted parent. 30% of families showed that symptom in the data. Role reversal use of the child. It's not me, it's the child who wants to, go to private school. It's not me, it's the child who wants to take dance lessons rather than soccer. It's not me, it's the child who is rejecting the other parent. I encourage the child to be with the other parent, but it's the child who's doing it on rejecting. That's a role reversal. Putting the child out in front for adult level decisions. It's the child, not me. Denies responsibility. That's 96% of the families. So pretty much all the families show this. It's not me, it's the child who's doing this stuff. Parental abdication of responsibility. And then ACS 11 deserves to be rejected. 100% of the families. That's your narcissistic symptom. That's, yeah, of course I hit her. She deserved it. My dinner was cold. They deserve the cruelty. They deserve the abuse. And so that's in 100% of these families. And then ACS 12, disregard of court orders. Again, 93% of families. That's a narcissistic personality at a borderline who can't structure themselves within rules and limitations. They just don't like those rules and limitations. So the where those numbers come from, the percentages of where they showed up, is from a study by Greenham, Childress, and Pruder. It's up on ResearchGate right now. So you can go look at the study and it will describe everything about it. But basically, it's Dorsey Pruder's data set that she's developed a research project that she calls the custody resolution method. It's a content analysis using data coding, a methodology called data coding or data tagging, where she gets lots and lots of data, emails, texts, reports, and just everything documented surrounding these families. It gets documented in high conflict custody cases. And she hires data coders or data taggers to go in and read all of everything and sort it into various categories. And some of the categories she codes for are the 3 diagnostic indicators and 12 associated clinical signs. And so then we went and took a look at what they're showing. What does the data show about the prevalence of the 3 diagnostic indicators, but also the 12 associated clinical signs? And what the data shows from the family courts is that all 46 families had the 3 diagnostic indicators of pathogenic parenting by the allied parent. So I nailed the pathology. The pathology is in the family courts. We have the narcissistic borderline dark personality who's creating a persecutory delusion and factitious attachment pathology. 46 of the 46 families had the pathology, had shared persecutory delusion factitious disorder. Now, what we looked at, though, was not the prevalence of the 3 diagnostic indicators. That just defines who's the population is. So we're looking at the population identifying foundations, and we know what the shared delusional disorder, the attachment-based description of this pathology. What we looked at was the prevalence of the associated clinical signs. How often did they show up in these 46 families that had the 3 diagnostic indicators? And first off, 46 of 46 families, all families had 5 of the ACS or more. Okay, so everybody had 5 or more. Now, when you look at these and when you think about them, if you go into the schools and do it with, school-based behavior problems or something, you'll find none of them. If you go over with, juvenile justice, you'll find none of them. But here you'll find a lot of them. And here we have at least 5. And 45 of the 46 families had 8 or more. So mostly we have 8, 9, 10, 11 of the 12 ACS for most of the families. And you can look at the paper and it'll break it down for you. So that's pretty impressive. Now, the scientific method is to develop an explanatory model, which I did, and then to make provable or disprovable predictions based on an explanatory model, which I did. I'm predicting based on foundations, I'm predicting that the 3 diagnostic indicators will be present 100% of the time with this pathology, and you'll have a lot of the 12 associated clinical signs. And then you test the prediction against the data, which is what Greenham, Childress, and Pruder does. And it's up on ResearchGate. So this pathology is absolutely nailed. Okay, we're diagnostically, everything I say about an attachment-based model of this pathology in the family courts, as described in Foundations, is 100% true and accurate description of the pathology in the family courts. You want data? There's the data. You want a scientific method? There's a scientific method. You look at it any way you want: personality disorder, attachment pathology, and 12 associated clinical signs. And it all says the same thing. So the combined symptom documentation instruments of the Diagnostic Checklist for Pathogenic Parenting and the Parenting Practices Rating Scale, that's to document normal range parenting by the targeted parent, will accurately diagnose the pathogenic parenting by an allied parent 100% of the time and will not ever misdiagnose the pathology. And so I think this protocol, the assessment protocol of the Diagnostic Checklist for Pathogenic Parenting and the Parenting Practices Rating Scale for the targeted parent should be routinely conducted in all cases. All cases of court-involved custody conflict, just routinely collect the symptom information, because the patterns that show up on these 2 instruments will accurately diagnose the pathology 100% of the time and never misdiagnose it. And then in addition to the 3 diagnostic indicators, I would say the presence of 5 or more of the 12 ACS provides additional support, strong support for the diagnosis based on the presence of the 3 diagnostic indicators. Now, personally, I think you're going to find, because this is based on the data, this cutoff of 5 or this finding of 5 symptoms is based on just the data. If you actually start collecting clinical interviews, I think those numbers are going to go up. I think the percentages will go up as well from direct clinical interviews rather than just paper records and stuff. And I suspect, I don't think you're going to worry about a cutoff. I think you're going to see a lot of these will show up when the pathology is present. But I would say, personally, if you're looking at 4 or more, you're looking at the pathology one way or the other, because you can look at it on the outside as well. You can look at the persecutory delusion, you can look at the factitious pathology, you can look at the splitting and the personality pathology, you can look at the family system stuff, or you can open it up and look right inside and you'll see 8, 10 of these ACS in here. It's pretty much a diagnostic lock, the Diagnostic Checklist for Pathogenic Parenting. And so diagnosis is a pattern match of symptoms to diagnostic criteria. So I recommend routinely that everyone begin by documenting the presence or absence of the symptoms on the following symptom documentation instruments: Diagnostic Checklist for Pathogenic Parenting and the Parenting Practices Rating Scale. And yeah, they should just be routinely collected with this pathology so that we get clarity on what everybody's talking about. And so with that, I'm going to wrap up my introduction to the 12 associated clinical signs and now move over to my commentary on each one of them. And this is not I won't be making a full discussion of each of the 12 associated clinical signs, just providing a little bit of additional commentary around the origins of them and what to look for, because they're nested within the entire pathology. So we can spend a lot more time talking about where they come from, how they come from, what they show, and that sort of thing. But follow me over and we'll start talking about the the 12 associated clinical signs.